I thought it was just a smudge on the glass, until it started changing. Every night, at exactly 12 a.m., the words reappeared different, more personal, more threatening. I live alone. No one else has access to my bathroom. And the last message. It mentioned something no one else could possibly know. Want to know what it said last night? You won't sleep after hearing this. Ethan had moved into the downtown Portland apartment just 3 weeks ago. It was perfect, excellent location, affordable rent, and most importantly, immediately available. The realtor, a nervous man named Harrison, seemed overly eager to close the deal, but Ethan didn't question his luck. The apartment had a vintage charm from the 1940s, with hardwood floors that creaked gently underfoot, and tall windows that let in plenty of natural light. The bathroom, in particular, featured a large antique mirror with an ornate frame, a piece that was certainly worth more than a month's rent. Ethan was a freelance writer, accustomed to solitude and silence. His nights were filled with the soft sound of his vintage typewriter and the occasional noise of cars passing on the street below. He felt at home, but there was something about the mirror that caught his attention from day one. It wasn't just its size or beauty. There was something almost hypnotic about it, as if it held secrets within its silvered surface. It was on the fourth night that Ethan first noticed something strange. While brushing his teeth before bed, around 11:45 p.m., he saw an odd stain on the mirror. It looked like condensation, but the shape was irregular, almost like smudged letters. Probably steam from the shower, he muttered to himself, running his hand over the glass. The mark disappeared easily, leaving the mirror clean and clear again. Ethan didn't think about it again until the next morning. Upon waking and entering the bathroom, he was surprised to see that the mirror was completely fogged up again, as if someone had taken a hot shower during the night. But he knew he had slept all night and hadn't used the shower since late afternoon the day before. A chill ran down his spine, but he rationalized it away. Old buildings had their quirks. Maybe it was just humidity from the pipes or poor ventilation. On the fifth night, Ethan decided to pay closer attention. He stayed awake until midnight, watching the mirror while slowly brushing his teeth. The clock read 11:58 p.m. when he began to see something forming on the glass. At first, it was just a light fog appearing in patches. But as the seconds ticked by, the condensation began to take a more defined shape. Ethan's heart started racing as he realized what he was seeing. Letters. Actual letters were forming on the mirror's surface. At exactly 12 a.m., the message became clear. Hello, Ethan. His toothbrush clattered into the sink. No one else had access to his apartment. The doors were locked, the windows were on the third floor, and he lived alone. Yet there it was, his name, written in what appeared to be condensation on the mirror. Ethan's hands trembled as he reached out to touch the glass. The moment his finger made contact, the letters vanished, leaving nothing but his own pale reflection staring back at him. The next day, Ethan tried to convince himself it had been a hallucination. Stress from the recent move, too much caffeine, lack of sleep. There had to be a logical explanation. He researched online about old mirrors, condensation patterns, even optical illusions. But deep down, he knew what he had seen was real. That evening, he called his sister Victoria, who lived across the country. They had always been close, and she was the only person he trusted with something this bizarre. Ethan, you sound exhausted. Victoria said after he finished explaining. Have you been sleeping? Eating properly? Moving is stressful. And that old apartment might just be playing tricks on your mind. I know how it sounds, Vic, but I'm telling you, I saw my name written on that mirror. Maybe it's some kind of prank. Does anyone else have keys to your place? Just the landlord, and I haven't even met him in person. Everything was handled through the property management company. Victoria's voice softened. Look, why don't you record it tonight? Set up your phone camera facing the mirror. If something happens, you'll have proof. If nothing happens, maybe you can put this behind you. Ethan set up his phone on the bathroom counter, angled perfectly to capture the mirror. He made sure the battery was fully charged and had plenty of storage space. If something was going to happen at midnight, he would have evidence. He tried to go about his normal evening routine, but found himself checking the clock obsessively. 11:30 p.m. 11:45 p.m. 11:50 p.m. His palms were sweaty, and his heart was pounding so loudly he was sure the phone would pick up the sound. At 11:58 p.m., he positioned himself in front of the mirror, pretending to brush his teeth while keeping his eyes fixed on the glass. The first wisps of condensation appeared at 11:59 p.m., exactly as before. But this time, Ethan noticed something else. The bathroom temperature seemed to drop several degrees. His breath became visible in small puffs. At 12 a.m., the message appeared. Did you miss me? Ethan's blood ran cold. This message was different. More personal. More aware. It knew he had been gone. Had been avoiding the mirror. Whatever was communicating with him was intelligent. The phone captured everything. The next morning, Ethan reviewed the footage. The video clearly showed the condensation forming, and the words appearing, exactly as he remembered. It wasn't his imagination. Something supernatural was happening in his bathroom. He decided to research the apartment's history. At the local library, he dug through old property records, newspaper archives, and city directories. What he found made his stomach turn. The apartment building had been the site of multiple unexplained deaths over the decades. In 1987, a woman named Catherine Reed had been found dead in the bathroom of Unit 3B, his unit. The official cause of death was listed as accidental drowning, but the circumstances were bizarre. She had somehow drowned in just 3 inches of water in the bathtub, with no signs of struggle or medical emergency. Before Catherine, there was James Morrison in 1965, also found dead in the same bathroom under mysterious circumstances. And before him, Eleanor Blackwood in 1952. All 3 deaths had occurred at exactly midnight. Ethan found more information about Catherine Reed in old newspaper clippings. She had been a 28-year-old nurse who lived alone, according to her sisters. Interview with police. Catherine had been acting strangely in the weeks before her death, claiming that someone was watching her through the mirror. The sister, Margaret Reed, was quoted as saying, "Catherine called me the night before she died, terrified. She said something was writing messages to her on her bathroom mirror. I thought she was having a breakdown. I should have gone to her." The police had dismissed Catherine's claims as delusions, possibly brought on by work stress or mental illness. No evidence of foul play was found, and the case was closed quickly. But Ethan knew better. Catherine had experienced exactly what he was experiencing now, and she had died because of it. That night, he almost didn't go into the bathroom at all, but curiosity and a morbid fascination kept him planted in front of the mirror as midnight approached. The message that appeared made his blood freeze. Catherine tried to leave too. Ethan immediately called Victoria, even though it was 3 a.m. on the East Coast. "You need to leave that apartment," she said without hesitation after he told her about his research. "Pack your things and come stay with me until you find somewhere. Else, I can't just abandon my lease. And what if this thing follows me? What if it's attached to me now, instead of the apartment? Ethan, you found out that multiple people have died in that bathroom, at midnight. Just like when these messages appear. You need to take this seriously." But even as his sister pleaded with him, Ethan felt a strange compulsion to stay. It wasn't just curiosity anymore. It was as if something was drawing him back to the mirror each night, making it impossible to leave. The next evening, he tried to barricade himself in his bedroom, but at 11:55 p.m., he found himself walking toward the bathroom, as if in a trance. He couldn't resist the pull. The message that night was longer. "You can't leave, Ethan. I need you to stay. Just like the others." As the days passed, the messages became more frequent and more personal. They appeared not just at midnight, but throughout the day, on the bathroom mirror, the bedroom mirror, even the reflective surface of his laptop screen. "I know about your father's accident. You blame yourself for not calling him that day. Victoria doesn't know about the pills you took last year." Each message revealed secrets that Ethan had never told anyone, intimate details about his life, his fears, his shame. Whatever was communicating with him had access to his deepest thoughts and memories. He stopped eating regularly. Sleep became impossible. Dark circles formed under his eyes, and his hands developed a constant tremor. He looked exactly like the photos he had found of Catherine Reed in the weeks before her death. One night, instead of just reading the message, Ethan decided to respond. Using his finger on the fogged glass, he wrote, "What do you want?" The response appeared instantly, "To not be alone anymore." Desperate for answers, Ethan contacted Margaret Reed, Catherine's sister, who was now in her 70s and living in a nursing home. When he explained who he was and why he was calling, she went silent for a long moment. "I wondered when someone would call about that mirror," she finally said. "Catherine wasn't the first, you know. That mirror has been in that apartment since the building was constructed. Every tenant who stays in that unit long enough, well, they all start seeing the messages." "Did Catherine ever figure out what it was?" Ethan asked. "She said it was someone who had been trapped in the mirror for decades. Someone who died looking into it, and now couldn't leave. Catherine thought it was a man who had lived in the apartment in the 1940s, right after the building was first occupied." Margaret's voice became barely a whisper. She said he was lonely, that he needed someone to stay with him, to keep him company. And the only way to do that was, was what? To join him, in the mirror, forever. Margaret told Ethan about the original death, a man named Thomas Crane who had lived in the apartment in 1943. Thomas had been a veteran returning from World War II, suffering from what would now be recognized as PTSD. He spent hours staring at himself in the bathroom mirror, sometimes talking to his reflection for hours. One night, neighbors heard him screaming. When the landlord broke down the door, they found Thomas standing in front of the mirror, his hands pressed against the glass, apparently trying to push through it. He was dead. His heart stopped from sheer terror. His eyes wide open and staring at his own reflection. But what disturbed the witnesses most was that Thomas's reflection in the mirror didn't match his body, while his corpse stood facing the mirror. His reflection appeared to be moving, mouth opening and closing as if trying to speak. The mirror was supposed to have been removed after that incident, but somehow it remained in the apartment, and Thomas's spirit became trapped within its silvered surface. Every person who dies in that bathroom becomes part of the mirror, Margaret explained. Catherine, James, Eleanor, they're all trapped in there with Thomas. And they're all desperate for company. Armed with this knowledge, Ethan developed a plan. He would leave the apartment, but first, he would try to help the trapped spirits move on. He researched methods for communicating with the dead and releasing earthbound spirits. That night, he stood before the mirror with a piece of paper and pen, ready to have a real conversation with Thomas and the others. "I know who you are," he wrote on the fogged glass. "Thomas Crane. You died in 1943. The response came quickly. You know about me. I want to help you. All of you. You don't have to be trapped here forever. Too late. The mirror holds us. Just as it will hold you. There has to be a way to break the connection. To set you free. Only one way. Break the mirror. But then we all disappear forever. And you still won't be able to leave." Ethan felt his hope crumbling. "Why can't I leave?" "Because you've seen us. You know we're here. The mirror has marked you. You'll never be able to forget us. And we'll follow you wherever you go." Ethan realized he had three choices: stay in the apartment, and eventually join the spirits in the mirror, leave, and be haunted by them for the rest of his life, wherever he went. Or find a way to destroy the mirror, and free everyone, including himself. He chose the third option. On his final night in the apartment, Ethan prepared carefully. He gathered a hammer, protective eyewear, and thick gloves. He also wrote a detailed letter to Victoria, explaining everything and apologizing for not listening to her warnings. At 11:50 p.m., he stood before the mirror one last time. "I'm going to free you," he said aloud. "All of you." As midnight approached, the familiar condensation began to form. But this time, multiple messages appeared simultaneously, as if all the trapped spirits were trying to communicate at once. "Don't do it, Ethan, you'll kill us all. Will be nothing, stay with us, be our friend," but mixed in with the desperate. "Please," Ethan saw other words. "Thank you, free us. End this at exactly 12 a.m. Ethan raised the hammer and brought it down on the center of the mirror with all his strength. The mirror exploded in a cascade of silver fragments, each piece reflecting the bathroom light like fallen stars. But as the glass shattered, something extraordinary happened. For just a moment, Ethan saw them. The faces of Thomas, Catherine, James, and Eleanor, appearing in the falling shards. They looked peaceful, relieved, as if a great weight had been lifted from their shoulders. Their mouths moved in silent words of gratitude before they faded away forever. The bathroom temperature returned to normal. The oppressive feeling that had haunted Ethan for weeks lifted like fog in the morning sun. He was alone in the apartment for the first time since moving in. But his relief was short-lived. As he swept up the broken glass, one shard caught his eye. It was larger than the others, about the size of his palm, and in its surface, he saw his own reflection. except his reflection was moving independently, mouthing a single word over and over: help. Ethan dropped the shard and it shattered into smaller pieces on the bathroom floor. But he understood now. The mirror wasn't just a prison for the spirits. It was a living entity that created more of itself, trapping anyone who destroyed it, in the process, by breaking the mirror. He had freed the previous victims, but had become trapped himself in the remaining fragments. And someday, another person would move into this apartment, and the cycle would begin again. The next morning, Ethan packed his belongings and left the apartment. But he took one small mirror shard with him, wrapped carefully in tissue paper. He couldn't bear to leave it behind, knowing that part of himself was now trapped within its reflective surface. As he handed the keys back to the property management company, the clerk mentioned casually, "We already have someone interested in viewing the unit this afternoon. A young woman named Sophia Bennett. She seems very eager to move in quickly." Ethan felt his blood run cold. He wanted to warn her, to tell her about the mirror, but he knew she wouldn't believe him. Just as he hadn't believed the signs and warnings that had been there all along. That night, in his hotel room, Ethan unwrapped the mirror shard and placed it on the nightstand. At exactly midnight, condensation began to form on its surface, and a message appeared. "I'm still here, Ethan, and I'm not alone anymore." In the reflection, he could see his own face, trapped and pleading, just as Thomas and the others had been. And somewhere in the distance, he could hear the sound of another person moving into apartment 3B. About to discover the beautiful antique mirror in the bathroom. 3 weeks later, Sophia Bennett would make her first post on social media about strange condensation patterns on her bathroom mirror. She would dismiss them as quirks of the old building, just as Ethan had done. And at midnight, she would see her first message appearing in the glass. "Hello, Sophia. The mirror you see had reformed itself from the fragments of the previous one, as it had done countless times before." And Ethan's trapped spirit, along with all the others, would watch helplessly as another innocent person was drawn into their eternal nightmare. Some mysteries are not meant to be solved. Some mirrors are not meant to be looked into, and some messages that appear at midnight are better left unread. Because once you've seen them, once you know they're there, the mirror will never let you go. The end.